video is about how to manage risk in your nature-based OT business. My name's Bronwyn Painter and I'm the Nature OT. One of the things that lots of OTs worry about in working outside or in a different way with nature is how to keep themselves and their clients safe outdoors. We absolutely need to understand and manage risk in our business or our work. And if this is stopping you from moving forward with working outside or working with nature, then you absolutely need to watch this video. The good news is that I have a qualification and training in work health safety and safety auditing, and have worked for more than 20 years contributing to and managing safety in the workplace. So I am very familiar with work health safety legislation and what we need to do to protect ourselves, and to genuinely keep people safe and to help them achieve the benefits of working, being in nature without getting hurt. So I'm going to start by saying this is not legal advice. I am not a lawyer. I'm an occupational therapist. I'm a safety professional, but I am not a lawyer. And so at the point that you feel you need, legal advice, then absolutely go and get that. It's important that we, particularly in running our businesses, that we do what we need to feel comfortable and to get the advice that we need to, feel confident about moving forward with what we're doing with our clients in nature. But having said that, I am going to share in this video the internationally recognised 4-step process for managing risk in a business or a workplace. So there is an international standard for risk management, and across really many jurisdictions in the world, there are just different kind of tweaks and versions of following this core process. Before the 4 steps though, before we get started, there's 3 things that I want to share with you. So in terms of getting started, the first thing is that you really do need to understand the rules. And so if you're running your own business, you do need to know where to go to find the information about how is safety regulated in your context. So your country, your state, your whatever level of regulation. So you do need to understand the legislation and what's required of you as a business owner. And there are many sources of that information. So in Australia, where I am, we have Safe Work Australia as a peak organisation that provides a lot of guidance material. And then within each state and territory in Australia, we have different legislation. So unfortunately, each state kind of does their own thing, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's also not difficult to find the regulator in your state, have a look on their website and follow their processes. If you're an employee, then you need to understand your workplace's safety system. So you need to understand the policy, the procedures, especially the risk management procedure, and what you need to do in creating a new service of any kind. But we're here about nature. So in creating a new nature-based service, like to actually do a risk assessment and follow the processes that your employer has to know that everyone's taken care of in that process. And then finally, we need a way to communicate with our clients. We need to communicate if there are hazards or risks associated with the service that we're providing, that we let them know that so that they can make an informed decision about the risks versus the benefits of what it is that we're offering. And so communicating that in a way that matches the values and style and legalities of your business or your organisation is really important and not difficult, but it needs to be done intentionally. So I'm going to share the 4 steps to risk management. I'm just going to share my iPad and just draw these out. So, risk management 101. Step 1 is identify the hazards. And a hazard is something that can cause harm, basically. So it could be harm in terms of injury or illness. It could be harm in terms of property damage. Could be a tree limb falling on a car. It could be harm in terms of financial risk or reputational risk. So in this video, I'm going to focus on safety risk, but just know that risk management covers all risks. So the kinds of things, if we're thinking about working with people outside, what are some of the things that, what are some of the hazards that might exist? It might be things like insects or animals. In Australia, we're, conscious of snakes, spiders. In other countries, it might be other things. We don't have sort of, large predators here on four legs. But understand the environment that you're taking people into. So it might be insects or animals. It might be commonly slips or trips, uneven ground, slippery ground. It might be the weather. It might be getting lost. It might be COVID. We need to have a COVID plan, a COVID safety plan. And in, many jurisdictions, that's a legal requirement to be able to deliver any services or run a business. So, we need to be across all of these things. So you need to really think about what is it that you're offering, where is it that you're taking people, and what are potentially all the things that could cause problems in that environment. And then the second step is risk assessment. So risk is what can go wrong. So an insect bite, let's say a bee sting, what could go wrong is kind of a low level, normal reaction right through to anaphylactic, shock. So the risk is the consequences of exposure to the hazard. If we're thinking about slips and trips, it could be that someone rolls an ankle. It could be like a musculoskeletal injury. It could be a fracture. It could be that they fall. So yeah, the risk is the consequences of engaging with the hazard or being exposed to the hazard. If it's a tree limb falling off a tree, it could be that it crushes a car and there's no injury. Heaven forbid it lands on a person. So the hazard can result in a number of risks, if you like. And so what we need to do with risk is actually just evaluate the level of risk. This is what risk assessment is about. So if I just draw this out, assessing risk is about understanding two things. It's about understanding likelihood, and it's about understanding consequences. And so you can find, this is a risk assessment matrix. You can search very easily for risk assessment matrix. There are many different versions of this with different descriptors. There are some that are kind of numerical that will give you a number outcome. There are some that, are language based. There's lots of different measures, and the easiest thing to do is to go to the organisation that manages risk in your context. So for us, like let's say Safe Work Australia, and look at the guide to risk assessment, and it will have some kind of risk assessment methodology that you can probably just copy and apply. So likelihood is about how frequently is something going to go wrong. So this might be, let's think about a mosquito bite. It might be every time you run this OT service outside, someone gets bitten by a mosquito. It might be every 10th time, or it might be something really unlikely that happens sort of 1 in 100. And then we think about what are the consequences. So in terms of safety and personal injury, the consequences could be that there's no injury, that it's something that requires first aid, something that requires medical assessment or treatment, something that, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Well, since we're there, let's just go to the extreme. You know, worst case scenario could be something that results in death. And so then to rate risk, what we're doing is it's just a matrix. So let's think about mosquito bites. If we're taking, you know, a group of people to a particular environment where there's lots of mosquitoes across summer, then it might be, you know, every time we go there, someone's going to get bitten by a mosquito. So, you know, that is first aid every time. If it's something like, if we think about someone rolling their ankle, you know, it doesn't happen that often. Maybe it's somewhere between these, every 10th time. Hopefully it's not every 10th time, but let's just go with that. And maybe it's bad enough that they require an X-ray. And so when you look up risk assessment matrices, what it's about is about coming up with a level of risk. And so, you know, the levels are going to be, is it low risk? Is it moderate risk? Or is it high risk? And so it might be that these low consequence things are sort of low risk. Every 10th time, no injury. Yeah, so things that have no injury are generally low risk. And then it might be that things that result in first aid and happen every 10 times, it's probably not really what we want. So that might be a moderate risk. Everything that happens, if it happens every 100th time. Medical assessment, so someone's having to go off to the doctor. If that happens every time, I mean, that's not really what we want to be doing in an OT service. Even if it happens every 10th time, we'd probably be going, oh, not feeling too good about that. And then we get to the high risk. I mean, all these are going to be high risk, obviously. We don't want anyone actually having this consequence. And oh, actually, this goes the other way, sorry. Like every time here would be red. Every 10th time, you know, we might say that's too high risk. And then maybe this one here, every 100th time would perhaps be moderate. And so what that gives us is a bit of a mess. What it gives us is an indication of where we should take action. So we absolutely want to eliminate or reduce anything that is high risk and probably anything that's moderate risk. And so then we get to the third step in the risk management process, which is about how do we eliminate or control risk. So, you know, this is the stuff that we often just jump straight to. We see there's a hazard, we understand something could go wrong, and then we go straight to how do we control it. And that's fine. But when there's a lot of things to manage, it really does make a difference to actually assess the risks so we know where we get most benefit of putting our effort. And so when we're thinking about controlling risks, there's some concepts that we need to understand. One is the hierarchy of control. And this is about, if we can design out a hazard, that is a better solution than if we just kind of try and manage people's behaviour. So, for example, if I'm a landowner and an OT and I'm running, well, not even a landowner, but if I'm running, say, an event in nature that involves walking down a really slippery, steep path, I could just say to people, hey, like, be careful down here. Or if I am a landowner, it would be a better risk control if I actually put in a handrail, put in a rope to hold on to, built some steps, did something, as an engineering control, as it's called, to change the environment and make it safer. So that, there are some controls that are better than others, and there's this concept of a hierarchy. There's also the fact that we need to understand what the known controls are. So as OTs, we understand evidence-based practice, and that's kind of what this is. This is about understanding how particular risks are managed in particular, industries. And so, for example, if we're going to run a walking group, then it's a good idea to understand, for example, bushwalking guidelines about how do we make sure people don't get lost? What's our emergency plan? So understanding how things are controlled in the kind of outdoor industry, if you like, is really important. That applies also to things like first aid. It's about understanding that we need to be up to date. We need to be providing evidence-based best practice interventions, and first aid is one of those. So first aid requirements change over time. First aid treatment for ticks, for snakebite, for exposure changes over time. And so, that's part of our need to stay up to date and current and evidence-based, not providing kind of folklore remedies or, like things that are unproven. As registered health professionals, we need to be providing evidence-based controls for risk. And then the final concept is something called doing what's reasonably practicable. And this is a legal concept. Practicable, there we go. This is a legal concept that is defined in all the work health safety legislation, wherever you are. And it's about understanding that, we do what we can to manage risk, but we can't eliminate every risk. And so it's not about reducing risk at any cost. It's about considering what is reasonable. And so it's worth understanding that concept as well. So let me check my notes. Yeah, okay. So through that 4-step process of identify hazards, assess risk. Oh, I didn't do the full step. Control risk. So eliminate or control. The 4th step is to review the controls. And so it's about making sure that your controls are not introducing new hazards, and about making sure that your controls are effective. So if you do something to reduce the risk of, say, mosquito bites, and then you find that actually every time you run an event, half the people are getting eaten alive by mosquitoes, then you would review that and you would introduce some different controls. So it's really important to go back and review, has what we've done been effective? And this is not new to OTs. This is what we do with all our interventions. And so then that will get you to a place where you can write a risk management plan. No, what are we doing? And so your risk management plan looks like, really, actually, I won't draw anymore. Just this process, like you list the hazards, so you list your hazards in all areas, whatever it is that you can think of that might cause problems. You assess the risk. So what's the likelihood and the consequences, and what's the level of risk? You have a plan for how you're going to control those risks. You do actually then go back and reassess the risk to make sure that you have reduced it, and then you continually review. And so when you write your risk assessment plan, it gives you a document that you can share with your insurer, for example, your organisation if you need approval to do something, or just to give you the confidence that you have actually thought through what the hazards are and how you're controlling them, and you feel comfortable and confident with what you're doing. So risk management is something that we do need to understand. And just to wrap this up, we want to help people, not harm them. And so we do need to understand what we're doing to manage risk. And, I think we do need to have it documented, and we need to give ourselves the headroom to know that we're confident in what we're doing, and people are going to be okay. So this video has really just touched on the very basic overview of what risk management is. Um, I would like to say that as OTs, we're educated, we're pragmatic, we are good at understanding evidence, we're good at understanding systems. And so not to be overwhelmed, but to find the information you need and work through it and apply it to the nature-based service that you're creating or delivering. So if you want to learn about how you can manage risk in your nature OT work, then I'm very happy to have a 15-minute chat with you and, talk about a particular risk perhaps that, you would like some ideas about some controls for. So have a look down below, and you can find my calendar and book time to talk to me. And I would love to do that with you and just brainstorm, what would help you feel comfortable in terms of risk. If you know someone else who might benefit from this video, please share it. And if you have any questions, then put them in the comments below. So stay safe, take care, take nature. Thanks.